We welcome you and invite you to take a journey that will introduce you to training and employment opportunities within the utility industry. This journey is sponsored by the Utility Worker Union of America Power for America Training and Trust Fund that connects members with the highest quality training available to meet the needs of both industry and the new global marketplace. From the birth of the America to the current moment, our nation has experienced four different types of economies. First, the craft economy, from 1700 to the 1830s. Second, mass production economy, from the 1830s to the 1970s. Then, service economy, from the 1970s to 2008. And lastly, the data economy, from 2008 to the present. Each of these economies, in part or total, still exists today. As each of these economies has grown, the economy needed both public and private support systems as underpinnings to support and fuel successful growth. These support systems develop and grow over time based upon the needs of the particular economy at points in history. The result of the growth of overlapping economies created the greatest economic power in the modern world to this point in time. With this economic power, there developed a large, blue-collar, unionized workforce that made up America's middle class. For the first time in history, this working class of people could provide more opportunities for their children than had existed in past generations. It also created a strong democratic system of government. Utilities fueled our economy and created the greatest economic power in the modern world to date. Utilities were the support system for economic growth. They provided for clean water for multiple uses, safe disease-free systems for handling waste, lighting to enable working the 24-hour clock, harnessing of gas and steam and oil to run machines, homes, schools, and hospitals, a vast grid of electric power to move industry and government that was uniform and reliable, and lastly, 24-hour call centers to untangle problems in a complex economy. To appreciate the long-term global impact of the utilities industry, we must be aware of the historical development in each of the divisions that make up the industry, from electrical power generation to lighting systems to public sewage systems. Most of the utility types and the technology development date back in many cases to the beginning of civilization itself. As employees of these historic systems, we would note some of the advances. For sewage, 800 BCE, the Romans construct the first sewers. In the early 1700s, nearly every home in London had a cesspit. In 1890, the first sewage treatment plant using chemical precipitation built in Worcester, Massachusetts. For hydropower, 1880, the Grand Rapids Electric Light Company generated electricity with a water turbine to light 16 lamps. In 1901, the first Federal Water Power Act first developed to coordinate the development of hydropower in the U.S. In 2006, the United States ranks among the top 5 countries in the world for hydroelectric generation. As for solar, we start off in the 1st century BC with the Roman bathhouses that were built with large south-facing windows to let in the sun's warmth, the first example of passive solar. In 1891, Baltimore inventor Clarence Kemp patents the first commercial solar water heater. In 1964, NASA launches the Nimbus spacecraft, which is powered by a 470-watt photovoltaic array. And in 2001, Home Depot begins to sell residential solar power systems in 3 California stores. Understanding our history helps us to appreciate the responsibility of continuing this historic development. Understanding our history helps us to appreciate the responsibility of continuing this historic development for the good of mankind. It allows us not to make the same mistake time after time. We will now give you a few minutes to look over services that are currently being offered by utilities. When we look at power generation as a large part of the utility industry, we find the more traditional approaches typified by coal, gas, water, and nuclear, as well as green-type energy that consists of solar, wind, and geothermal. As our traditional resources are exhausted, the green sources of energy move to the forefront to satisfy the growing population's hunger for growth. We will now give you a few minutes to look over the different ways that utilities generate power to offer consumers. Green sources of power generation are providing very serious challenges that force us to maintain a balance between traditional and green power generation types for the foreseeable future. New technologies of the future that will provide and enhance the utility industry are almost unimaginable. We move from power grids to individual fuel cell energy servers for each individual home and office building. We note the movement from wireless computer networks to wireless transmission of electricity. We are in the early stages of capturing ambient energy from the environment using energy harvesting. Battery science is advancing to store electricity from wind power when the wind levels are down. And we are seeing composite bodyworks that store energy in cars. In sum, the future world of utilities in energy production and transmission is unlimited and exciting.